good to go.
Hi, excuse me. Hi there, I'm Danny Henderson. Welcome
Mm.
back to the beautiful channel. My guests today are incredible. They've had so much experience on and off planet, especially Tony Rodrigues being off planet, Dan Willis seeing things from off planet to on planet, and also working for many, many years with different technologies. And we're going to get into a little bit of that today, give you a taster of what you can expect to witness and experience at the greatest conference and disclosure ever, which is the Galactic and Spiritual Informers Connection. Welcome, Dan Willis.
Honored to join you.
Welcome, Tony Rodrigues.
Hello. Hi, Danny. Hi, everybody. And Dan, great to be back.
Excellent. So, Dan, we're going to start with a little bit of your background and you seeing UFOs coming out of the water and doing Morse code. Please take us into a little of your just incredible background experience, please.
Well, my background, it goes all the way back to 1969 in naval communications with a high-level top-secret security clearance. I was getting reports of U.S. Navy ships reporting extraterrestrial craft coming out in secret reports going to chief of naval operations. I became aware that our government was aware of these objects coming out of our oceans, and it started my quest of researching over the decades. Over the years, I was followed the UFO topic. In 1977, I had an interesting experience with a Kundalini opening experience and a being with incredible love coming out of its eyes. Elena later identified as being an emissor. It projected a sphere in space, and as I observed the sphere, now I didn't know what platonic solids or sacred geometry was at the time, and as I observed one geometry fit into the next, what's called nested geometries, went all the way into infinity and came back again into a sphere. And basically the being was conveying that as we evolve through love, we change one geometrical frequency to the next, and that the higher densities can become aware of the lower, but the lower cannot become aware of the higher. Anyway, this is all new information to me, and it put a burning passion to try to understand what this was all about. And so, I tried to grab every book I could on the subject. It appeared that quartz crystals held a key in understanding the geometry of this matrix in relationship to consciousness. So in the early 1980s, I sought out Dr. Marcel Vogel, who was IBM's head scientist, who got involved with plant communication, which led into researching quartz crystals. And I assisted with helping set up a laboratory. And for 17 years, he researched the interface of consciousness with quartz crystals, working with 24 medical doctors and cutting crystals in specific shapes that help cohere the energies of mind. In 2001, I joined 21 witnesses at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. Each one of us stated we're willing to testify under oath before a congressional hearing, and inspired people like Dr. Michael Salla to get into the research that he does. It's kind of going along a chronology here. 2004, with my technical background, I volunteered flying around the planet, meeting with scientists and inventors. After a congressional hearing was denied to bring forth the scientists that we had within these unacknowledged special access programs that can prove that we have technology, that we don't need nuclear oil or coal, I flew around the planet, and just one horror story after another, national security orders, most of them received. So after 10 years, I essentially surrendered because I realized that the elements that control the release of these technologies on this planet aren't going to allow it to happen. So I basically surrendered. 2022, decades later, our mutual friend Elena Danan invited me on a show in 2022, and we were talking about the history of disclosure. Since I've been doing an extensive amount of research on the subject, we were talking about that, and then she mentioned, well, you used to work with Dr. Marcel Vogel on crystals, and so we started talking about that subject. And she mentioned that Thor Hanaredion, his younger brother, is going to a university in the Pleiades, learning how to terraform planets. He's a star maker, as Tony is well aware of that term. And so we might be able to ask him some questions about crystal technology. You can imagine their technology thousands of years ahead of ours, how enthusiastic I became in being able to communicate to such a being with such knowledge. And so from April of 2022 to present day, I think it was like 133 pages now of question and answer that we've been exchanging on the technology of crystals and their understanding, which incredibly, Dr. Vogel had a dream to cut the crystal in a dipyramidal form with particular angles. And it just so happens that's the same angles that you use on the planet Era, that, they power their entire planet with these crystals inside these pyramids that release the frill energy, and it powers everything. And the torsion fields that are within these crystals is how they power their starships. I've been asking a lot of questions, obviously, and some of the devices that we've created, and Tony's reproduced one of them, opens the singularity vortex into the void. Elena and I put some of this knowledge into action, where we had 1,700 people live, and we put a positive vision of a timeline. Everybody pulsed their breath at the same time, 1,700 live people. And at that exact moment, the Schumann resonance hit a spike. And Jenhan confirmed that all the minds on the planet have this interrelationship with the ionospheric, the interrelationship of what's called the Schumann resonance. It's the resonance of the planet, and the minds are interlinked with that. And we did that day. Though it's interesting that collectively we can affect what they call the planetary matrix. One of the technologies, some things Jenhan had to get special authorizations from the Galactic Federation of Worlds. He said, this is on the list of things we're not supposed to talk about, right? And so, fortunately, he's been given authorization, and currently we're building a reproduction of what they have on the planet Era, which is it's a miniature version. They're crystals that you keep in mind, they're like, 6 feet tall, up to 20 feet tall, that have these silver and copper windings that are perpendicular, that are pulsed in a particular frequency, that open up a torsion field within the quartz lattice structure that releases what's called frill, which is like the life force of the energy. Now they're able to convert that into energy that gets transponded throughout their planet. Now we're going to, because as he says, it compromises our safety, we're not going to deal with the energy power aspect of this energy. We're just going to deal with the frill that gets released, which happens to be very healing. It can go in the body. All life forms benefit from it. Plants will thrive, so it has incredible applications. And our science team that we've assembled together to produce this, for the energy devices and 3D printed forms for this crystal, are going to be presenting this technology at the Galactic Spiritual Informers Connection in October, and I'm extremely humbled and honored that the Galactic Federation of Worlds has authorized, to bring forth this technology to our planet. And so it's a great honor.
It's incredible. And like you say, it really is an honor. And it's beyond exciting to me on so many different levels, because again, we've taken our world into our own hands. And you mentioned about the controlled release. All these years you've traveled around bringing technology that would uplift and elevate humanity and protect the balance of the ecology on the planet. But it was ignored by the retards at the top that have been running our planet. Now we're getting rid of them. So we had to take, matters into our own hands. And I'm just so proud of you. You've got such a long career of trying always to disclose and share and make better things happen on our planet. I mean, I think you're the one in my life that's been doing this the longest, honestly, apart from my granddad, but he's dead, so that doesn't count. But in terms of like really experimenting and creating, and like you say, the technology that you're bringing, the frill to showing us how to, harness the ether energy. This is moving forward how it will be, and there will be no stopping it and no blocking it. And I know that you're so looking forward to it, and you've worked on a beautiful presentation, and you've got a great team with you coming on stage, and it's just going to be absolutely just mind-blowing. And first time in the world, first time ever. Also, Elena Danan said and confirmed there will be members of the military team in the audience again, just like there was last year. I think they'll be more obvious this year. I think people coming back and new people coming to our event will, by this time a year on, will have learned all the different techniques we talk about in feeling resonance, because our resonance is attuned to the Schumann resonance. So when we're off planet, people up there can pick that up in us. So we're going to be able to, with our own, reading with our hearts, our own energy frequency to another's, we'll be able to feel, is there a human in there or something else? Tony Rodrigues, my love, talking of beautiful, beloved extraterrestrial, you've certainly seen a ton in your lifetime. Gone through some awful, horrible, dreadful things that were condoned by the American government and the military across the planet. You ain't getting away with it, boys, just so you know, just so we're clear. But one of the great things that you've done, again, it's like up your bum to the whole torturous programs you were in. You were put through something and you've basically recreated it from Mars. Yes, from Mars, because people live on Mars and the moon and Ceres and Jupiter. In fact, the whole planet is just full of bloody people, everybody. But Tony, can you go into some details for us on what you saw and what you've created, my love? You're on mute, darling.
Are you?
That's why my little thing didn't light up. So sorry. Thanks, Danny, and thanks, Dan. I can't wait to see what you're presenting. So, like you said, I built a small one myself, and I really love the thing. It's a frill generator, and I don't really have the words for it. Like we don't think in the terms of frill energy in our living room, and so I don't have the words to explain it. But when you turn it on, there is a very tangible feeling that it creates, and so I can't wait to see you with what you guys are working on with the big system. As for me, my story is very complicated. I was taken when I was a kid into these programs and went through some black programs on Earth for a few years, and then sold off into space and lived on colonies shortly on the moon and on Mars, and then on Ceres planetoid. But on Mars, during that time, the project that I had been trained for and canceled. So I'd been trained for a certain skill set and on a project, and then they canceled the project. And so I was leftover material. I was basically treated like a piece of equipment. It was a military organization. And so they took me to a bigger city on Mars, underground on Mars, and retrained me. They gave me assessments to see where I would be good at, what I'd be good at. And I landed on like a skilled labor. And then they plugged me into a system and retrained me how to do ship maintenance, spaceship maintenance. So the same, possibly some of the craft that Dan saw back in the day were things that I ended up riding on. I worked on a UFO for upwards of 12 years. I worked on a couple ships, UFOs, for the Series Colony Corporation. But during that training process, it was not like what we experience here when we go to training. When we go to vocational school, the experience of learning was completely different with the system that they had. They basically had me in front of a computer, and it didn't give me stats and things to remember per se. It gave me situations to overcome. It gave me decisions to make. So it was clear over time, and it's something that I hated at the time, like being school, but I kind of learned it was just because it was like work. I showed up during the day and I just stay all day, and it seemed like it never ended. But looking back on it now, it was very efficient. And when I concluded my time in space and they put me back where they got me, I went back to school, and I was completely uninterested in the archaic way that our school teaches us, of sitting and memorizing and then doing your multiplication over and over again, and endless homework and paperwork. And I thought, this is the most sticks and stones. This is the most barbaric way to learn. And so that stuck out. Maybe that's like an anchor to the memory. So of how I remember it, because I longed for it again. When I went back, when I had to go back and then stay in school and finish my schooling. So lo and behold, so here we are, fast forward to your conference last year, the Galactic Spiritual Informers Connection Conference, which changed my life and feels like it's been 5 years ago, to be honest. It's been like a dog year to me, what's happened in the last year. So it went from, I presented on that technology and a few other things that may be applicable. And people took interest and said, why don't you just do this? And just like you said with Dan, we are doing this. So there's a certain point where we got to stop asking our government to do things for us. We have to stop having the pipe dream of some benevolent person coming into our life and then doing everything for us, and just go out and do it yourself. And so that's where I'm at right now with this. A lot of people showed interest, and I founded the company. We've done a lot of research into it, and we're up and running. We have accounts happening. It's a little overwhelming, but basically we're in the process of building a software that we can put. It's a heavy load on the intake end, but it'll train people faster. It's just a faster method of learning, and it's a different, rather a lot of, and we can debate this all day long about the current education system, that they train you to be a drone. When you go to school, when you're in your basic K to 12, you're being trained not to think for yourself, but to do what you're told. And so this system is different. It's not super high tech. It's not like I'm inventing a supercomputer to do this, which it is handy that we do have certain AI tools available to us that won't take the whole thing over, but we can use some of that to lessen the workload. But it's always going to have a human on the end of it, proofreading it and doing the intake, and then making sure before it ends up finished, it's going to have a human on both ends of that. But it's just a method of organizing the information in a way that makes the person, whoever is watching, student, you want to call them, or trainee, whatever you want to do, because there's a training division and a teaching division that we've created, because we have corporate interests now. People want us to build their training videos for their employees to go, people that come out of college. So we've been approached by companies that want to retrain because it's not the same as it used to be. People used to hire into the company and stay in, and over a course of years they would learn the post-college prerequisites, and then they would learn the business. Nowadays they come in and they're immediately over here and they don't know the business, and it costs companies a lot of money. So we've been approached by some companies to build a training program for this, and this is something that kind of fits like a glove. It's exactly what they were doing with me. But it's just a way of organizing. And that's why I said the front load is organizing the information in a way that forces the person to make a decision, sometimes unbeknownst to them. It forces them to make a decision. And then if they get it wrong, if they don't retain the information the first time, it doesn't repeat the same exact thing. It just gives it in a different way, because some people have aptitude in reading and some people have more aptitude in watching a video. And so the program sorts that out. And we get it. So there's no I don't want to say there's no pass and fail, but it's not pass and fail the way that we think it, with the way that we used to. There's, it will slow down for people that have a slower aptitude, and it will speed up for people that are sharp, and that will come out in the wash. So it really is something. It's a decision-based adaptive learning. So that's what we're working on. And the biggest thing. So putting this together, and I hate to be wordy, guys, because I know we're not here all night.
Take your time, it's fascinating.
But putting it together and researching what it's going to take to make this a viable product, to be a business that earns a dime so that it can stay alive and expand. Really been a journey in the last year. I mean, I can present the entire hour and a half or whatever my time is in October on just this last year of what's happened, because learning isn't what we think it is. Schools, the high school, the K through 12, and the way that the current education system is not what most people think it is, the same way that the money system isn't. And I will touch on that. I will kind of break out with some hopefully some slides and some visual aids. But what I've learned from that was that from the concept, people were like offered money right out of the gate. I said, that's a great idea. And here, sign off and we'll sell it. We can package this and sell it and get rich and overnight. And I went, no, because when you plug somebody into a front of a computer with an AI on the other end of it, with pre-programmed curriculum, and you put them in front of a computer for long hours of time, you can literally unleash hell on somebody. I don't want to be regarded. I thought I'd rather it fail and do nothing than me be responsible for unleashing this into the wrong people, and it being responsible for destroying the lives of potentially hundreds of thousands of people, kids. When you're putting kids in front of it's programming. Television does it, your phone does it, school does it. And so this presented the unique opportunity to give an opportunity to program learning in a way that's not going to ruin people. And so I kind of held back on the floodgates of people that wanted to take the company over in the beginning for that reason. And so it's admittedly been a setback, but really in the term of going from concept to funding to research and development inside of 1 year is light speed compared to most of any other company that's ever happened. And so it's gone really fast, and the road has raised to my feet, to my footsteps. The pavement has raised to my footsteps. Like times when I go, man, I need a software guy. And then later that day goes, hey, later over lunch, somebody goes, what's funny? What do you do? And I do software. And it's happened time and time again. So I've had favorable wins putting this together, and I'm going to continue to, as long as the sea keeps parting, I'm going to trudge right along across the seabed, because that's exactly what's happened over the last year. I got it. It's been way more than good luck, to put it that way. I've had things happen that were unexplainable on the same. I've had problems arise in the same day they mysteriously disappeared. And so I'm working on this. There's a lot of things that I could go on about. Like I've learned a lot about AI, and I've learned a lot about the education system, particularly the funding and where education is going to be going in the next 10 years. Because we have to position the company to stay alive in that environment. And so there's a lot of things I will present on a few tidbits of that, as well as my new book, Project Star Maker. It rings a bell from what Dan was just saying too. It's a small, seems like a small universe, doesn't it? But
Crazy.
I will present on that stuff and kind of just where we're at with the research of it. And like I said, the company's gone really fast from concept to having something viable, and it'll be hopefully the end of 24 that we field some products. And we're starting on a just a basic kindergarten level learning program with characters and animations, and then we'll go to K-3 very quickly. But then there's a training division that we're working on corporate training as well. So this is something that's it's something that I think is going to catch on. I'm not putting up I'm treating it like like making a movie, not making the camera to make the movie.
Yeah.
So we are making the content. It'll be our copyrighted content, but the method of learning, I think, is better than just memory regurgitation and prerequisite learning. So the method of learning, I think, is find once this catches on, once we throw up the numbers on how much faster it is to plug into the system and learn versus sitting in the traditional web method of learning. Once those numbers come up, I think it's going to go like wildfire. It's because education got a lot of funding after that. Something happened where everybody got the flu a couple years ago.
Mhm.
You know, after all that happened, education got something like $680 billion in the United States in funding, and they haven't even spent a quarter of it or a third of it or something like that. That money is still laying around, and they've only got so much time before they have to spend it. So education right now and moving into a digital education, remote education is the hot spot in Silicon Valley. So they are racing to crank out products, and a lot of them are great stuff. But I think that because I learned it on Mars so long ago from an ET species, I think I have kind of a leg up, and everybody that sees it really is takes great interest in it. So I big hopes. And the next couple of years, it'll be a viable thing.
Yeah, yeah, it's
It'll
incredible.
be working.
Yeah, the returns on, I mean, who would have thought that, a little boy, as you were, kidnapped by, and sold into the military, American military. And, I know we go over this, but it is again to state that no one's ever going to get away with the horrific treatment of little boys and children like you, Tony, because, there was agreements, everyone knew this was happening, and these programs are still going on. So that's why we talk about them, because they have to be spoken about and not hidden. Somebody made a comment on a video I did the other day, and the video that you and I did on Lunar Command when you were taken to the moon. And this person, right, it made me really sad and hurt my heart to see Tony being emotional, sharing his story. And, Danny, you shouldn't have let him do that, and I just deleted the comment. But I thought about it, because I'm like, well, you have to keep talking about it, because it isn't something that just happened 40 years ago. It's still happening. And to adults, it's happening, right?
I'm doing it because it's happening to somebody else that doesn't have the ability to sit here and talk to all of you people. So that's why I'm doing this. I don't care if I get emotional or not. And I don't care if somebody asks me a question that's insulting. And I really don't care about any of the insulting remarks that happen on any of the YouTubes. And I don't care if I'm the last person alive and everybody looks at me and points their finger and laugh. This happens to other people. And I was wishing to all of the universe when I was a kid going through that thing that somebody would speak up for me. And so that's what I'm doing. And I really don't care what anybody's opinion is. Everything that's stolen must be repaid. By the end
As
of
time goes by, you become more vindicated.
And over time, exactly. And it started out with people laughing at me. It's true. But over time, more evidence is just shook out. And that's the other thing. So, Danny, maybe you should give me like 5 hours to talk at the conference, because there's a lot I'd like to cover. So I have drummed up some slightly new evidence this year, because since last year, of course, I want to present and give a bigger, better presentation. Last year, really, I talked about the economy in space. It was a one of a kind presentation.
Right.
And this year will be too, but I'm trying to bring all the evidence forward that I can present this time for what happened to me, and present where it's led me, because all I did was get my memories back and start talking about it, and doors opened up. In fact, nowadays, so many doors are open to me that I can't keep up with them all. And so that's it. So I will present on what I'm doing, try to bring everybody up to speed. But this last year my life has turned a completely different. I'm a completely different, living a different life after your conference, in a good way, to the positive way. So it changed my life. And so I'm hoping I'm ready for part 2.
This conference is going to be so information packed. I know mine has to squeeze a lot of information in a very short period of time. So yeah, I totally relate.
And with you guys alone, then we have a vendor room full of really beautiful products, life healing, life enhancing, immune boosting, many different vendors there and their products too. So it really is taking a real kind of more high-tech vibe this year. And we have Dr. Christiane Northrup on stage talking about the future of human health and You know, it's just so exciting. Again, us taking our power back, us deciding how we create this beautiful world, all of us together, all of us inputting. And Tony, back to you. And, you know, from being on Mars, and again, I do like to kind of, you know, nod to the fact that when you were a little boy and you were looking at this technology, you were watching the highest of the high military personnel coming into the room and plugging themselves into the very same technology, right?
Yeah, there were people that were coming in, right? There were military people. Some of them were workers, some of them were soldiers, and some of them were command. And they'd get their own workstation. It was a room that looked like a college computer lab with a bunch of computers set up on separate tables. The lights were dim, and there was an ET that was the professor there, and he would plug us in. And there was a rig. I'll show an artist drawing of the rig and what it looked like. I'm going to try to make that room as best I can so I can present it. But I have a few sketches that I can present already. But I'll show what that room looked like. And I spent many days there. I would wake up in the morning, go there and do 8 hours, have a quick lunch, and then go back to my room and go to sleep. And that was my life until I was trained on ship maintenance, how to maintain a spaceship. And that's what I did for about 8 years after that. Then I was retrained several times after in similar systems, but nothing quite like the one on Mars. So that's the primary one that I'm trying to build. And I'll say this, and I know I'm kind of opening a can. There's a lot of people that are on the fence about what AI is and what it does and how the dangers of it. It's very dangerous. It's like fire. AI is like fire. So we need it in the winter. But if you don't do it, if you don't have respect for your fire in your home, you will lose your home to it. And AI is the same way. It must be regarded with respect as it is an open flame. And but it seems like as I get into the AI study, and we're trying to bolt on early available AI things to help, not in the actual software itself. There's no AI in the software other than the programming of it. So it's basically like a program that you follow. The AI is helping in generating the content, taking volumes of content and distilling it down into useful points of data for the student. So that's what we're using it for. But as I learn from it, I look at it and I think their system on Mars probably had an AI behind it that was adapting to me as well. So that's something that's going to be later down the road. It's not necessary at this point. Like I said, we have people to do the labor for a lot of that stuff. And I'm very cautious because AI is not unbiased. It was programmed by people and it's got an agenda. So the AI that's available to the public now does have an agenda in it. So you can't rely on for all of your information. I would never unleash it in this, put an AI component into the software that I had no say in how it was fed, put it that way. But looking back on it, they must have had a very advanced AI that they were using there on Mars as well.
I heard a story of an AI bot, and it was given a task, and the task was to make money. And this bot goes on the internet, and it gets to this that he has to check the box, are you a robot? And apparently AI robots can't do that. So he figured out if he called a company online called TaskRabbit, he could get and pay an AI assistant, you know, virtual assistant, a human, to tick the boxes for him. And the human said to the robot, are you a robot? Are you AI? You know, but the scary thing that terrorized me, thinking that this thing is outthinking, always got to, you know, looking. So yeah, there's a real fine line. And I don't like the thought of these AI bots walking around malls. And I saw one guarding a filthy rich Saudi, you know, and I thought, oh, I had to look away. I felt embarrassed for the man. It's like his giant action man was walking behind him, you know, and everyone thinks that's cool. And it was like $40 million, you know, like, wow, you know, well done, you know, money bags. Yeah, I think there's real danger, massive danger that needs to be very much looked at. And again, Tony, you know, and I don't know how you feel about this, Dan, but, you know, knowing how they've dumbed our children down and us down over the years, really degraded the whole system. The children that can't write, that can't read and write, we call it joined up writing in Britain. You guys call it cursive. It is a fundamental skill. It is a fundamental physical brain motor skill you know, brain to hand, you know, and hand to eye coordinate, like these skills, they can't be kind of withering away, but they are, you know, so this is a massively important part of every child's learning, is learning to write. Else we're going to end up again, you know, back in the day where, you know, we were all slaves and we could only sign an X for our name because none of us could write. You know, that's exactly what they're trying to do, reprogram backwards, losers. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that the other thing that has grabbed my attention from seeing how it works is that it's probably been here a long time. The government, military probably had AI for upwards of 40 years, and it's been making decisions. And that's really kind of what's been going on behind the scenes, is the AI thinking of a military version of it that is fed for a military objective and on the globe. And so they've probably been using AI. And when we see a lot of this, and they're in a panic now, we're in the end game of it. So it's much easier to see kind of light of hand. Whereas before they took their time and we saw something's going on, but okay, oh, well, whatever. And we kind of moved on. And I think you've been using AI all along to consolidate material resources and for the military to kind of bring forth a kind of from a military objective of security for either the United States or other powers. The ultimate goal would be global domination. So from any military standpoint, and it seems like that's what's been going on. When you look at how AI works nowadays, that I'm sure we have a very basic version in the chat GPT. We have a very basic version of it. When you look at how that works, if you thought of a full-grown military version, you might expect to see things like bioweapons and economical weapons and weapons that need a camera in every room and a microphone in every room and everywhere, like in every pocket, put it that way. So that makes perfect sense to gather data. So the camera that is everywhere on all of our phones that does not have a camera lid works best with an AI component to it. So it just makes sense that that's what's been going on all along. And so to logically kind of reverse that back, we can see that inhumane things that are happening are not being initiated by humans. There's probably an AI behind it.
Unquestionably.
So before I go too deep in a new rabbit hole, you know, it's a new technology, the same as every technology that ever came out, cars, planes, all of it was always met with fear. It must be treated with respect of fire, and it can be used to keep you warm, and it can be used to destroy. And so that's where we're at right today. It's AI.
They make a good servant, but a terrible master. And it's so important that education systems are controlled by benevolent elements. That I think that the biggest danger is the ignorance of our history of our planet, the history of how we've gotten to where we are now, what's been hidden as far as, the technology. We've had our planet hijacked, and we're so many decades behind where we should have been because of these elements that have, from the Invention Secrecy Act in 1951 to the control of our education systems. So yeah, it would be a good thing, Tony, that we help eliminate the ignorance of who we are and how we got to where we are today.
So the world of education is a one fix, it's a silver bullet to train. We can't undo where people are. You see what they're using education for now. You can kind of see what they want out of the world when you see what education's doing. But you can't you can't get rid of all the politicians and all the financiers and all the bankers and all the lawyers. You can't get rid of those people that are immoral in one blow. But you can train a new generation of people that have a better morality out of the youth. So that's the silver bullet that fixes everything. You can train the youth. We can't kill off the world and build a new one in overnight, but we can train our children to give us a better world in our interests, in the interests of humanity, not just some humans. And so it's a silver bullet. And when I look at the apparatus for, say, fine, I'm going to build a an online school that does K-12, and then later on we'll do like college prerequisites and all the way up to what do you want nuclear engineering. I'm going to train all those courses and put it here so you can watch this learning system and learn 20% faster than you would in school. Bam. It's not going to go anywhere because the apparatus won't let it happen. So we have to look at end rounds, and we have to look at ways to package this. And there's a great interest in people that want to teach their spirituality. There's a great interest in teaching kids things about, the crystal psychic phenomenon, on and on. So there's a great interest that a lot of that information isn't available.
They should have learned, Tony, all along. Things that we should have learned, our parents should have learned, their generations and generations and generations. While we are trying to help and educate and share ideas out there into the field and ignore the authorities, I also want to say to people, very few people realize that agencies like the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, I was researching because I made a mental note to speak about this to you guys out there watching, and they redact, the Wikipedia or wicked pedophiles, as I call them, that they're all rewriting history. They're literally redacting and putting different names in. You boys, you're so thick, you think we're not going to recognize that. So the FDA, I believe, was created by the Rockefellers or some such family, truth and fact. And they've been holding the control release, as you mentioned earlier, Dan, on all the technology. They have been controlling the release of medications that would have just helped us. Billions and billions of people wouldn't have died, wouldn't have suffered, wouldn't have to go through terrible procedures. That is a fact. So why don't some of you out there come together and create your own opposition to the FDA? It's not difficult. We just never bring to mind the thought that we can actually do that. If I wanted to start a drug agency where I could set it up correctly and have different scientists pass the safety, the scientific, they're releasing one of the jibby jabberwocky things that they're trying to pull out again. And apparently the test was done on 4 mice. 4 mice, Vicar? Are you sure? God. Yeah, so people out there, please think about the things that you can do to swipe away the skid marks that have been running your planet forever. And look at these faces here. Tony Rodrigues and Dan Willis. These men are coming forward with the greatest technology to thrive, for all of us to thrive in this world, from the tiniest ones to the oldest ones. And that is the plan, Stan, isn't it? That's the plan for us all to thrive.
That's right. And baby steps. Don't think that you're going to reinvent the whole thing in one night. So that's what I mean. Like they've been using 100-year plans to get to where they're at now. So we have to use 100-year, 200-year plans. We have to do it not in person. We have to form a chain of people that are going to keep our interests alive, the people's interests alive. And like I said, I was talking earlier about the apparatus, like the idea of building an entire thing and then replacing the education system isn't going to happen, but we can build on bolt-ons. We can build options for people to get some of their education in this way, to bolt on this, to not take over all. You're not going to get rid of band class or gym class or the social experience of school, but you can trim down the math class. You can trim down the history and some of these things. And then in that process, you can offer, because if it becomes a product that gets sold, then in that, let's say I sell a product that gives math, reading, English, and history, and the kids take this for homeschooling. I can also offer for $5 or $1 cooking and morality, political morality. You can put these in that are going to be easy, just a quick thing, just a little bit of input into human mind can have great effect, and especially if it's in a positive nature, it can go for a very long way. So this is how we do this. This is how we do this. We're not going to turn the ship around. We have to turn the ship slowly, and that's how it's going to have to take place.
Yeah, it's over a long period of time. Your strategy is great because you're using the strategy that they used on us. Is how did they get to the place where we have today? Is through generational indoctrination, because one generation, when I was watching television with my father, watching Walter Cronkite, and he had no idea, that the whole media information systems have been infiltrated and being used against the people. And then one generation creates the next generation. And by the time we have today, it's a faint memory of what was several decades ago. And it's interesting. The thing that got me is when I testified in Washington, I couldn't imagine, here's 22 cameras, myself being an ex-ABC newsman, I couldn't imagine, how could what we were disclosing was so explosive not affect everything? But then I became aware of how, Operation Mockingbird and so forth and so on has completely controlled the perceptions of the public in order to hide some of the most important truths of our world. And but all that's changing with conferences like you're doing, Danny, in helping to educate and bring forth this knowledge.
Yeah, definitely. We all come together, raise our, our frequencies, all align and all put forth into the field what we as a humanity want. And we decide and we're taking control, and that's it. One of the things, Tony, with the education thing is I long for the day that there is not one single element of homework. It is such a distracting, stressful, horrible, upsetting time in a family, and it disintegrates the family time together, the family unit. It is an unbearable nightmare that our children are tortured from being in rubbish education. And of course there are beautiful teachers, of course there are some horrific ones too, but the homework element, it's not helpful. It's never been proven to be helpful. And I've witnessed as a children's nanny and nursery nurse for years, working behind the scenes in education, trying to get the curriculum rewritten for years in San Diego, Oceanside, and seeing just nothing but this horror, this stress and tension, and looking at us, we're such beautiful beings. Us humans, we're so beautiful. We're really loving at our core in our natures. But if you pile us up with stresses and strains, and then we've got attacks from pharmacology, oh, give him this, give him that, bit of Ritalin, bit of, it's just all gone so wrong. But this is the time we have now, like we say, bringing everything forward, and men like you standing strong, in love for humanity and for self, and learning from the things that you've all learned from. I bet you're happy there's no more Morse code though, right, Dan? All right, well, let's bring this conversation to a close. Dan, can I come to you for final words, please?
What was that again? One more time.
Bringing our conversation to a close. What would you like to say?
Just it's such an exciting time to be incarnated and alive on this planet, to watch this incredible transition from a hijacked planet into coming into full awareness. And my God, the possibility of our dark elements collapsing and joining the other civilizations across the galaxy, with the Galactic Federation of Worlds, and releasing the incredible technologies, not only in energy, but healing technologies, the things that I were involved with, with holographic technologies, and the med beds, and all this technology that has been withheld. I think it's going to be this incredible renaissance of a transformation of our entire planet, and catching up of the decades that have been taken away by elements that wanted to keep us ignorant of that world. And so, doing things like this conference and bringing forth the knowledge is such an important element in this awakening. And I'm honored so honored to be able to do this, and bring possibly the technology from another world for the first time on this planet. I mean, how incredible is that?
It's so incredible. It really is. Tony Rodrigues, final word.
Final words. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. And like I said, this last year, the conference last year changed my life. It did. There was a vibe there. You were saying earlier about people in the audience. There were a lot of people that had missing time. There were a lot of things. There were a lot of sightings. It was a unique experience, and so I'm looking forward to more of that this year. It changed my life for the better, and I can't wait to get back there. I can't wait to get back to that group of people, the vibe that we had. It was some of the most beautiful. There's a real all the speakers that you're going to have. There's a real magic when we're together, and so I really can't wait to go back and really experience that. And the people, the crowd, I learned so much from the people in the crowd. It was very emotional for me, and to get out and meet people. And a lot there were people. It was a big enough crowd. There were a lot of people who had no idea who I was, which was great. But there were a lot of people there that have been following me for a long time, and it was very humbling. And like I said, it was a great learning experience. So this year is going to be bigger and better, and I can't wait to be with you guys.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, so exciting, and wonderful. And again, we've said many times how beautiful the audience is and was, and how sophisticated they are in their natural abilities and their longing to remember things that have happened from, this time and other times, past times, and for them to feel that the people next to them, in front of them, and behind them in the audience are in the same frequency, the same mindset, the same seeker's journey, journey of validation. And there's not too many places that, even if you go to a regular conference, you don't know what the person next to you, what their beliefs are, but at least at this conference, it's the galactic and spiritual, when we're informing and they're informing and we're all connecting together. And it is really, really super magical. And only 3.5 weeks to go, ladles and jelly beans. So you better get your tickets. We still have tickets available. We've got, I did a drop last night on kind of really good spiritual hygiene for your own kind of mental state, to get your frequency right in a room full of people. So I invite you to go back to my drop last night. It's just got an image of Gsic and me, actually. Sorry about that. I couldn't pick another one of the speakers. It wouldn't have been fair. I wanted to use the Gsic logo, so I just put my picture up there. But again, that's the one to look for, the one we did last night. So my name is Danny Henderson. I thank my beautiful guests and friends, Tony Rodrigues and Dan Willis. I love you guys. Can't wait to see you. Can't wait to give you a hug. And to you guys out there, lots of love from my heart to yours, and we'll see you soon.